Welcome to another night shift, top secret information with political commentator, influencer, comedian, conservative Anthony and his good friend 28 Patriot Mama, 2A Patriot Mama on Instagrams. Today, breaking down the Epstein List, the cabal behind it, and all the things that you need to know to keep you guessing. My name's Eric Tansey, former law enforcement officer and special operations veteran. I will be joining in just to listen as we go down the rabbit hole on another night shift, top secret information. Without further ado, let's bring in Anthony and 2A Patriot Mama. How do you do?
How are you?
Hello, everybody. How are you? A lot of 2024 information coming out, right?
It's like a tidal wave this week.
I feel like we better slow it down if we're going to finish this marathon that is 2024. We better put the brakes because right now we are at a full sprint going into. I don't know what else can we pack in. The bingo card is kind of filling up, and it's filling up quickly. We've had tsunamis, ginormous tsunamis. We've had this whole Epstein List that thing is going out. We've had the Jewish tunnels, which is bizarro land. I'm sure we're going to have to cover that at some point.
Don't forget about the 10-foot creatures in Miami.
Oh my gosh, right?
You know, there was more footage of Brazil 10-foot creatures on a hill that was released by the New York Post today. Video.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And then we have the strategist from JP Morgan predicting rolling blackouts in 2024. Biden won't be running, according to this strategist. And a couple of maybe a new pandemic coming out. And then we have a super cancer that's sweeping the nation. I mean, that is a lot to pack in less than, 11 days? We're in the 11th day of this month.
Oh my God, it feels like it's been 300.
We're ready for it to be over?
And before we go forward, being it is January 11th, I just want to say today is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. So
is that a thing?
I'm wearing my shirt. Hashtag.
Oh.
Huh?
That is awesome. I didn't know. When are we going to have a National Pedophile Suicide Celebration Day?
Homicide.
Well, I did just report today about a convicted child porn criminal that not only made it, was featured in it. He just happened to die in prison in Michigan.
Oh, thank you, God.
Shame.
That's
so
great.
Devastated.
That's amazing.
So Sonia, I know that you and I have talked in length about trafficking, and we have talked about the list. Does the list surprise you, and what do you really think is going to even happen now that the list is out?
No, the list doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's not technically a list. It's court documents with names featured in it. Names that we mostly knew about. I mean, a lot of people are saying that they were surprised about Stephen Hawking, but as somebody that has been on this journey since the beginning, I knew his name was in there. There was something with him. There were pictures of him on the island, around a table. Like, I've seen all that stuff already. So I was not surprised. The thing with these documents is, for me, is they've had all this stuff. You know, they're dripping it out to everybody. And it's always like, what are they trying to distract you from? Like, because if they were really going to do something with any of this, they've had all of the evidence. They had bins and bins of CDs and tapes and everything else with stickers, tape that said evidence that they had seized from his house. You're going to tell me that none of this is on there? You and nobody has done anything? They've done nothing.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
And what bothers me is somebody that is an advocate against human trafficking, that is boots on the ground. Now I look at this from the survivor's point of view. not only the survivors that were involved in this, but survivors all around the world that are now reading all of these details. They are being re-victimized again and again and again. And it makes me sick. They've done nothing. There has been no justice whatsoever. These victims not only had to go through all of this, had to tell their stories, hoping that justice was going to come of it, had to sit in court and retell their stories, reliving their trauma. And now they're releasing the details in these documents where everybody's reading it, plastering it all over the internet, re-victimizing all of these survivors all over again. Not only them, but any other survivor that may have gone through something similar. And it's disgusting to me. Stop playing with this information. Let's talk about the tapes, the video, and everything else you have. You're going to tell me you have nothing on there?
Yeah, we know that there was videos recovered from almost every single room of the Epstein Island. We also have all these bizarre pictures of like legs and limbs that definitely look like they come from very young children in the mouths of some of these rich elites that have been leaked. I agree with you there. I do think, though, that after I've seen some of the Bill Clinton stuff coming out, he is being publicly shamed for the first time ever. And I think the Clintons, I think this is very good for the Clinton family. They have been an evil, diabolical couple going back on record as early as the 80s with the Boys on the Tracks. And then, that coincided right with the Franklin murder cover-ups and the Bushes and the satanic cabal of the Franklin cover-ups. That book was written in 1992. I think it was called The Franklin Murders. And, I've always, after knowing the Boys on the Tracks story from the 80s and that the Clintons were directly involved in that, I have no doubt in my mind that they were. I do think it's nice right now that the Clintons are taking so much heat for this. And I know I feel bad for the victims having to relive it, but I mean, sometimes there is no joy without sacrifice. I would love to know some of these other victims, though. I mean, right now, all we have is Sarah Ransom and Virginia Giuffre, or Guffrey. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but the liberal left or the far left right now is almost painting Virginia Giuffre and Sarah Ransom out to be, they haven't said it yet, but I love the lingo. It's like, well, you can't really trust these girls because, they have a troubled past. Why don't you just say it's because they're whores, because they're prostitutes? Is that why you can't trust them? It's the first time I've ever heard the left use that as an excuse. I feel like the left forever has always defended the prostitutes, have defended, the less fortunate, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term. Right now, it's early in the morning. But to hear the left in several media outlets say that Virginia Giuffre and Sarah Ransom can't be trusted because they've had a quote unquote troubled past, I think it's a low shot from the far left.
It is a very low shot. And you know what? It's always when it fits their narrative, and it's always the diversion. But Trump was featured. Okay, you know what? I knew that there was a lot of fake things that were being put out there and photoshopped and stuff like that. So I sat back and I watched, but I sat here ready to go. If Trump was on that island, I was ready to tear him down too. Well, I don't care who it is. The problem is with us, we're going to call it out like it is. The problem with the left is they always, well, what about this?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to focus on the actual what's in front of you. They want to throw something else to make themselves feel better about it. And that's not what we should be doing. The same thing like with pedophiles. I don't care where you come from, what your group is, who you are, because once you cross that line, I don't care where you came from. Right?
Yeah,
I'm going to pull your ass out.
Yeah, there's zero excuses that can follow you're a pedophile. So two things. One, back to the Clintons specifically. It's funny to me because a lot of people don't remember when the Monica Lewinsky scandal happened, and what was her Tripp? Was it Linda Tripp or whoever had accused him at that time as well? And I know there was other women. Hillary Clinton went on a victim shaming campaign and literally threatened women's lives instead of taking her own husband into accountability. So I think that Hillary Clinton is very anti-woman. So I don't understand why any liberal woman would want to follow somebody who literally victim shamed and threatened the lives of other women.
I don't know if she's anti-woman or she's just power obsessed. I think Hillary Clinton has had one goal in mind, and that's to be in absolute power from the time she was a little girl. I mean, even if you look at the pictures of her from a little girl, she looks like a little Karen bitch that would tattletale on you. That's me taking cheap shots at Hillary Clinton. But listen, why do we put this woman on a pedestal who literally has been in politics her entire life? Since high school, she has been in politics. She's never had another real job. She's never done anything else. She has literally had one goal her entire life, and that's to be in charge. And that makes for a very dangerous person, because she has, it's like, you know, that person that wants to be a pro athlete. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to do the roids. Look at Lance Armstrong and some of these, you know, these other Jerry Maguire, or not Jerry Maguire. What was his name? You remember back in the car?
I
don't sports all that much, but these guys are willing to do whatever it takes to be these professional athletes. Well, Hillary Clinton has made a life of doing whatever it takes to achieve that goal of being the president. So I don't know that she's anti-woman as much as she's anti anybody that's in her way. I love that the new Epstein documents spell out from Virginia Giuffre that, and I believe it was Sarah Ransom. You can go back and read, and I've got a couple of clips here that I'll read, and I encourage everybody to read this stuff for yourself. Don't just listen to us, but go out there and actually read these documents. I've been reading hundreds of pages of this stuff, and it's all starting to come together because I do a news show where it's like I have the news right in front of me. But if I remember correctly, Virginia Giuffre was speaking on behalf of Sarah Ransom, where Sarah said that Hillary Clinton, and again, that's hearsay, but like it's in the deposition, and with the Clintons past, I think it's more probable than not that she's telling the truth. But Hillary Clinton approached her and forced her to sign an NDA and an eternal vow of silence to not disclose Bill Clinton's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein on his little vacation island. And that's that. And she did that in 2008 for one purpose only. And that was to seek power. She didn't want anybody in her way.
Well, and here's something that I want to say also about the list. So we all know that when you are part of any group, okay, you're going to be invited to something that you didn't know the repercussions of or what happened. So you can't really say all these people that went there did the thing, right? Did the things. But it's the amount of times that people went there. Also, each person that did go there needs to be questioned, just as if you were in the same house of a murder and somebody was murdered, you were at that house, so you need to be questioned as well. With that being said, with the whole Donald Trump thing, from what I understand and hearing what Trump had said about this years ago during his presidency, somebody had asked him about Jeffrey Epstein and being there and hanging out with him. When you are in the Palm Beach sort of club, right? You own Mar-a-Lago, you own a club, you own a country club. Jeffrey Epstein was a notorious and known just rich person that was by default going to be invited to these parties, dinner parties, golf outings, so on and so forth. When Trump, from what I understand, found out what kind of person he was, he actually banned him from Mar-a-Lago then. Also, Trump stated that when he went to Epstein Island, he thought it was a little fishy. He didn't really like what he saw. So he said that he wouldn't go back. I do believe that Donald Trump did not like the way Jeffrey Epstein approached, I don't know if it was Donald Trump's niece or somebody that was super young, a female. And that is what changed Donald Trump's perception on Jeffrey Epstein, barring him from Mar-a-Lago. And he said, I just don't want to associate with this guy. So that's what I had heard. That's what I had read. I don't know what you guys think about that.
You're muted.
I think it's funny that in Virginia Giuffre's statements, she starts out with all of these things about Bill Clinton. And she goes on, and then they take a break. And then when they come back from this break, she all of a sudden changes her stance on the videotapes that Bill Clinton and the other billionaires were in on. And then she brings in Trump's name. So in the entire deposition, and tons of dialogue before the break, it was only the Clintons and 3 other billionaires, 2 of them which were redacted. No, I'm sorry. It was 5 billionaires, 2 of which were redacted. 3 of the names were released. And so that was all she talked about. Then they go on break. She comes back. She says all of that was a lie, and then immediately starts implicating Trump in these things. It's almost as if it's obvious at this point. And I can say that because of the whole Russia collusion thing, the whole FISA warrant thing, and this like overt. Listen, I'm not a Trump fan. I've never been a Trump fan from day one. I said when he was the president, when they were talking about abortion rights, I was like, I guarantee you Trump has paid for more abortions than like anybody that has actually had a fucking abortion. So I'm not like I'm not one of these. I don't have the stickers on my car. I don't publicly announce who I vote for. So I don't want you guys to think I'm some kind of bleeding like heart Trump fan. However, it is obvious to me in this case, or at least it appears to be in this case, that it's really fishy that she doesn't mention his name in the dialogue before the break at all whatsoever. And all she talks about is Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton. And I'll read you some of the deposition that talks about Bill Clinton. Then we have this little break and pause. And then she comes back, recants everything about Clinton, and then starts implicating Trump in a very weird way that cannot be corroborated with the other witness. I'm guessing that other witness would be Sarah Ransom. If I understand this all correctly, again, I encourage you to go back and read the list. As a news podcast guy, I'm only good with the facts when they're like sitting right in front of my face, because I actually pay people to pull these facts for me. But as I see it, and I know that this part is true, that there was, and I've read it myself, I did think it was very obvious that she was pulled aside and said, you are not going to say any of that. And now you're going to start talking about Trump. Yeah. It's obvious. Do you want me to read some of the
No,
you have something about?
You can. You can. I will say this before you read that, though. And I truly believe that people are misguided in voting because they're a fan of somebody instead of the policy that comes with that person. Is Donald Trump a tough asshole? 100%. In my voting opinion, as an American, the right to vote for whoever I want, I thought he was best, because you gave me a career politician and then Donald Trump, who was a citizen. So you gave America Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think that everybody would have voted for this broad? And then in the second round, you gave us Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Well, we can argue why Joe Biden won. We can argue if he did win. That's a whole other podcast. But I'm tired of this country always getting the run-of-the-mill old bastards that are still in office, that have been in office for over 40-something years, that are doing absolutely nothing, not only for the American people, but things that have to do with what we're talking about today. Donald Trump can be an asshole all day, but he's publicly spoken about doing things to eliminate trafficking, things that he wants to make sure are put in place to prevent trafficking. So I think it's important when we're voting for somebody, is this somebody that's good for the country? Is this something that's not good for the country? And is this somebody that's going to get something done for the country? I wanted to say that.
I love your point about against the establishment. I've always thought it was very funny that all these people raging against the machine, right? We were all about rage against the machine and rage against the power and all these folks. And then you have somebody like Donald Trump, who's literally not the power. And that was the only reason I was a fan of Donald Trump, was because he wasn't the establishment. But again, I've never really appreciated Donald Trump. I've never really appreciated anybody that's made it that far and that high in life that hasn't been overtly there on a moral background. And I don't think there has anybody that's gotten that far that can stand on some kind of a moral background. I always joke that Brandon Tatum is the kind of guy that I would love to see go very far in life, because his whole brand has been on moral values and a moral compass and a strict moral compass. And I appreciate that. Donald Trump has not built his power or his money on a moral background. And that's okay. Listen, I'm not here to debate whether Trump is a good person or not. But I think in principle, you have to vote for Donald Trump if you are one of these Rage Against the Machine guys, because he's literally the opposite of the machine. Again, he's not this career politician. And the fact that all the politicians hate him this much makes me think we need him even more, because we do absolutely need to dismantle the right wing and the left wing politicians. They are a corrupted cabal. They are I'm since the 80s. And again, folks, you have to go read the book Franklin Cover Up, go read Boys on the Tracks. And these books were written in the 90s, before any of this QAnon nonsense, before any of that ever existed. Yeah. These books were out there explaining a very dark and evil cabal. Remember, we had the Satanic Panic for a reason. And I think, and this is a great, and I'd love to get your opinion on this too, a Patriot Mama. But listen, I heard somebody say on one of the TikTok videos, again, not a great source, but I like what the message was. And it was like, isn't it great that we have powerful people on our side that are standing up against the cabal? Don't you like our odds? Like, wouldn't you rather have Elon Musk on your team than somebody like Bill Gates on your team? They have Bill Gates. We have Elon Musk. They have Hillary Clinton. We've got Vivek Ramaswamy. They've got Nancy Pelosi. We've got RFK.
Robert Kennedy. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they've got what's the physicist, the astrophysicist? I always forget his name, but they have him as the scientist. We have Joe Rogan. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have Russell Brand, and they have Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like, I really do like our odds in this real world war of good and evil that I believe exists. To a Patriot Mama, do you believe that there is a war, if you will, against good and evil right now, like we've never seen in our lifetime?
Yeah, a huge war of good and evil. But in my mind, or how I feel, is talk is cheap. You could say all the things you want on social media, in front of podiums and everything else, but if you're not actually doing anything to take action on your words and back them up,
I mean, would you not agree that Joe Rogan's not doing things to back things up? Would you say that Russell Brand is doing things to back? I mean, I think that these guys are doing a lot more than just talking on the radio. I mean, a lot of them are donating to these.
Oh yeah.
And awareness is part of it. Like Mission 22, right? We always talk about 22 veterans a day. 90% of that money goes back into marketing and awareness. So, I mean, obviously awareness. There's also foot soldiers, which is super important. But like in all the great battles in history, nobody remembers the guy that went over the berm and charged the enemy. They remember the general who ordered the man to go over the berm. But we do have people like you who are on the front lines of this, who are actively combating child sex trafficking by doing these prostitution stings. Do you like our odds, though? I mean, do you feel like, I would say that in the 90s, Patriot Mama, I would say in the 90s, nobody gave a real fuck about this. Now we do have warriors that care.
Yeah, I mean, I am seeing I am seeing a shift as far as the justice system, law enforcement, people getting involved, the awareness. Yes, has it increased? We are still so far behind on where it needs to be. I mean, this is probably far past the drug cartel business. In my mind, it absolutely is the number one black market.
It is. child sex trafficking in the United States. The United States ranks #1 for child sex trafficking, children being trafficked into the United States. Now, a lot of people think that kids are trafficked out of the United States. That's not true. They're trafficked into the United States. They're trafficked inside of the United States from one state to the next. And we're the #1 country. I think Thailand or the Philippines is #2. But another important statistic that we need to know is that child sex trafficking in the United States alone is a multi-billion, with a B as in bitch, billion dollar industry. To put that in perspective, Taylor Swift made about $900 million last year. 900 million. She was just shy of $1 billion. Think about how many people consumed monetarily Taylor Swift's content for it to equal $900 million. That means that there is almost twice that. Well, no, there is twice that, because it's multi-billion, if not 3 times that amount of people consuming child sex, pornography, and trafficking victims just in the United States. So that is a bizarre number. That means that, like, really, legitimately, pedophiles are snakes in the grass. They're everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to look at real numbers globally, human trafficking as a whole is $150 billion a year reported business. Currently, there are at 40.3 million people currently in modern day slavery globally. Every single day, 2,300 in the United States now, every single day, an average of 2,300 children get reported missing every single day. The #1 form of child trafficking in this country is by family members or somebody that they know, right in your backyard, right under your roof.
Yeah.
It's not Sound of Freedom in America. It is family, people you know. That is who's trafficking our children in this country.
Which was a 19-year police veteran and his 14-year school teacher veteran, who were probably one of the most horrific child trafficking cases, not trafficking, but child sex crimes cases, I think, in United States history, with over 150 counts of just the most vile things. I covered it on a podcast a couple of years ago. It's the Dennis Perkins case. The funny thing about the Dennis Perkins case is within almost hours of me contacting the Louisiana police commission down there to get the records, the Private Information Act, I was able to get his interview from 20 years ago. I was able to get his lie detector test with all the personal notes, and I was able to get all the deposition notes and then all the witness statements emailed to me within an hour or two of my request. I had hundreds of pages of documents, and the only redactions were the child's names and their addresses. And this is such a bizarre case where they were drugging little girls at sleepovers and doing nasty things to them, and the girls would not even know it, and nobody would even know that this happened if there wasn't videotapes of it in their house. They were filling cupcakes full of semen and feeding it to school kids.
I know that case.
It's just one of the most horrific cases that happened in the last 8 years. I mean, this was a pretty new case. I mean, it had been happening for almost, 15 years. Well, it had been going on for 12 years before they caught it. But the point being is that within a year or so of this actually coming to light, which is in like 2018, I was able to get all of these documents and do an entire 2.5-hour podcast going through all of it. But we can't get any information on the Epstein sex stuff, which is bizarro lands, because the only reason they released the documents of the Dennis Perkins case and his wife is because they were peasant teacher and police officers. They were just peasants. That's why we could know about them, but we can't know about what the rich or elites are doing. And he was a 19-year police SWAT veteran commander. He was a captain of a SWAT team.
Imagine that.
He was a school teacher.
I was just going to say, imagine that.
and that's right in this community. And I talked to friends of Dennis Perkins or witnesses. One of the friends had said to me that they had no idea that Dennis Perkins was a bad guy and everything. And then after an hour of conversation, the guy flips his tune and says, "Oh yeah, I mean, he was a dirty man. We used to call him Dirty Dick Denny." And I'm like, wait a minute, like an hour ago, you were saying like you would never expected him in the whole world to be this guy. And then he said, well, no, it's like, because he would fuck older women. I mean, he would fuck anybody, but, it's these deviants that are in our midst that are obsessed with deviant behavior that we kind of put up in a pedestal. It's that guy in the locker room that's smashing a different bitch every night. Eventually that gets old and they are going to start going down that rabbit hole. It's that guy that's obsessed with porn. It's the guy that's messaging you porn. That's the fucking guy that goes down this child pornography rabbit hole. And, what you think about pornography, right or wrong, or what your stance is, or how you deal with porn. Porn is a very, I think it's objectively speaking, porn is very dangerous. It's a lot like alcohol. Some people can handle it and some people fucking can't. But when you know that somebody can't handle alcohol, we talk about it, right? We mention it. We talk to that guy about it. We have rumors about him. But we all know that one guy that goes way too far with pornography. We don't say shit about him. We don't talk about him behind his back. We don't shame him public. We don't have interventions for these guys. We're just like, yeah, that guy. I mean, I'm to the point now that I have 5 kids and I do all these shows. People don't even send me the porno stuff anymore because I started calling people out. They would send me the porn. I'd be like, haha, why do you feel like that's appropriate to send me? Why do you think I would enjoy seeing that? I don't like that kind of stuff. I'm married and have 5 kids. I don't know why you think it's appropriate to send me. Now, listen, I'm not a fucking saint here. If you've got some funny porno thing, like a blooper that I can appreciate and humor, but that's not what this is. This is, somebody who's addicted to this kind of thing. We need to hold these folks accountable and we need to question them, because if you don't, they become child sex offenders.
Well, it's a very, very dangerous path with that, because what happens is that when you become addicted to it, you start looking for something more exciting. Then they start going into the teen videos.
Yeah, why? I mean, like that should be illegal.
Every single teen video is an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, because there's only
be illegal to say
a legal teen is 18 and 19 years old. So, once they start slipping down that slope because they get so bored with what they have consistently been watching, they're looking for something new, something fresh, something that's, going to get them going, let's say. And we do know, obviously, that the porn industry has been held accountable, is accountable for a lot of the child CSAM, we call it. We don't like to call it child pornography, and they are making that change of term because there was no child that was willing to film something like that abuse. So it's being called child sexual abuse material, CSAM. And these people who have been putting these videos, they're making money on this material. There actually was just something that, and the United States is the #1 customer for online child porn.
If pornography wasn't the gateway drug, and I hate saying gateway drug because I know that like some people are like, oh, weed, because we've kind of like said that the weed is the gateway drug to crack, and we know that was kind of like a lie back in the early days, the propaganda or whatever. But no, I really mean this. And and here's my proof in the pudding: is any porn site you go onto, it's going to have teen or mommy daddy porn. They wouldn't put that front and center on every porn site if that wasn't the most popular thing. And if the most popular thing is teen and mommy daddy porno with youngsters in it, you get what I'm saying? That means there are more people consuming pornography that are into children pornography and children's sex shit than there are people that are going there for whatever other reason that they're going for. So pornography is one of these things that I think needs to be regulated extremely. I don't understand why you don't have to put in an email address, a driver's license number.
I was going to say you should have to put in a driver's. Yeah, you should have to put in a driver's license. And one of the big things, I'm sitting back and like listening and taking it all in, because I agree with you, Eric. And it's gotten to the point now where it's not your back in the 80s, 90s, where somebody had a VHS tape that they found and you snuck and watched it because you were a teenager. It's literally anybody can become a porn star now. OnlyFans is, I'm not saying that I'm against it. I'm not saying I'm against any of this stuff. I'm just saying that, it is much easier for people to consume all of this, and it's much easier for them to become one of the actors. And with social media and the way social media has glorified, we know everybody, we've all have podcasts now, everybody has merch, everybody has this thing. Sex, unfortunately, is one of the things that has been over glorified. And so you do get into these pockets of unfortunate situations on a huge scale where children are being trafficked, are being sexualized, are being molested, all of these things. And I don't understand why we don't have a driver's license system before you can even log into the site. And that's why it's super important with what Sonia has been saying, and even Troy of Change Unchained, is that, sure, the list is great. It's fine. But like you guys said, this is stuff that's going on in your backyard, your neighbors that you had no idea about. I mean, you look at John Wayne Gacy, he was a pillar of his community. He was hiring men to do work at his house, drugging them, molesting them, and putting them in his crawl space. This guy was a politician in the community. It was a neighbor. It was a friend. It was a guy that held barbecues. So I could think back to when I was a kid, and it was like the 80s, right? And then in 90s, and it's like you went for a sleepover. I think that's why my parents never let me sleep over at people's houses, because my parents didn't trust other parents. But which I'm very blessed to have been raised in a household that way. But I remember there were a couple of situations where there might have been some questionable things now as an adult, where there was a parent, mostly men. I would say I know men and women can be predators, but where one of the fathers might have come out of the shower or room knowing that there were young teenagers all camping out in the living room, super inappropriate, didn't think anything of it because it was that time period. But now, with everything that comes out and everything that we talk about, and so many more people being so much more public about it, now you start to be like, well, wait a minute, there was that situation back when I was 15, where that was a questionable situation. So it is opening a lot of eyes. I think it's great that people are at least talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's very odd. And I interviewed Jaco Booyens at one time. He's really into the sex trafficking scene. His sister was trafficked for many, many years, and he's like one of the global leaders in traveling around the world. And Jaco Booyens' ministry is probably like the leader in child sex trafficking, hunting traffickers and getting kids back home safely. I mean, this is what all the movies were based off of, Jaco Booyens' story and his sister. But he was only 12 years old when it happened, and there's definitely a lot of trauma there. And I think a lot of people, he says a lot of things. He's very anti-porn. He's basically anti-sex. He's kind of anti-everything. I can't argue with the guy, because if my sister or something was trafficked when I was 12 years old, kidnapped from my home and trafficked around the world, and my family spent 7 years trying to find, I would probably be anti-sex as well. But one of the things that he said to me in my interview with him that really struck out was, I asked him, well, so how do you find these predators? How do you know these predators exist? And he says, well, one, go to your church, because that's a target-rich environment. These pedos are going to go to where the children are. They're going to go to the Boy Scouts. They're going to go to the churches. They're going to go to the schools where they have complete access to children. They're not working in the auto mechanic shop per se, because they don't have access to children there. The fisherman's always going to go to the pond with all the fish in it, typically, if he's a good fisherman. And he says a good way to tell is what will the preacher say about porn? When's the last time the preacher gave a sermon about porn? He said, you'll never hear a fat preacher preach about gluttony. And he's like, and you'll never hear a preacher that's addicted to porn preach about pornography. And I thought that was extreme. And he says, here's a great test you could do. Mention to your pastor about when is he going to do a sermon about pornography, or when's the last time he's done it, and how defensive he gets. If he says, well, we just try not to bring that kind of thing into our church, that's because that church has a culture. There's something going on in that church, either that pastor knows about that's going on or he's directly involved in. And I thought that was really powerful. Second point is, we're fine with people being against targeting children for tobacco products, for cigarettes, for cigars and marijuana and all those things. But why is there no outrage in the overt targeting of children in the sex industry, more specifically speaking, in pornography?
Totally agree with that. Totally. That's such a great point. Yeah, I mean, you have to be 21 now to buy cigarettes, right? And look, in my eyes, I'm almost 40 years old. In my eyes, anybody that's in their 20s anyway, in my mind, is a child. I don't know. I mean, it's just that I have nothing to talk with them about. If you're 22, 23 years old, great dude, good for you. Have a good college career. But you're a kid. So we don't have to hang out. There's nothing to do there. 21 years old to me is okay. You can start buying tobacco products, stuff like that. I don't think 18 is an adult. I really don't. I don't think that 18 years old is mentally an adult. I never could understand, even going back to times when I was a teenager where it was like barely legal, right? You'd see these magazines. I remember catching growing up, a cousin of mine who was much older than us found his stash of magazines, and it was like barely legal, 18-year-old girls, barely legal. Then at that time, as a teenager, I was like, that's really young, right? I mean, I was like, I'm a kid, like that's young. So I still think that that's young. I still think that your early 20s and 21 years old and 23 and 20, I still think that's an adult. I don't think that you're fully matured adult until you're close to 30 or at least 30 years old. So I agree. I think that there needs to be a lot of limitations on what can be found. I think that if you're a consenting adult, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But I think that they need to track better who exactly is looking up these sites and questioning exactly what, I know that they can see what everybody's looking at.
Yeah, because I mean, where do you go after barely legal? You know what I mean? Like, how do you?
I'm saying, like, if you're looking at anything that says barely legal, that's not legal.
Obviously,
you want legal.
Right. Obviously, you want illegal,
Correct.
But you're just settling for barely legal, which means you're a fucking pedophile unless you're like 16 and you know what I mean?
Because that's different.
Because you want to see those young girls out of your age for sure.
Right.
But and nobody wants to talk about the child porn addiction that's just going crazy around. I can't remember as well. I mean, I'm 40 years old, so it goes without saying, but there was no children addicted to pornography at all.
We couldn't get it.
You couldn't get it. There, you know what I mean? Like it didn't exist.
Yeah, you were finding it by mistake and then sneaking away to be like, "Oh my God, I've never seen this before," but you weren't doing it. It's at your fingertips.
And then when you got caught, everybody knew you got caught because your mom freaked the fuck out. And it was like, if you looked at one porn, you were porn addicted, right? Like they were like telling everybody, they're like, "Oh, Johnny was caught with pornography," and it's oh, they better get a grip on that now. They better, you know what I mean? Because it was like such a taboo thing. Now, as a police officer, I probably took the call once every 3 weeks, once every month of, I found all of this porn on my kid's phone and he's been sending pictures. She's been sending pictures back and forth. What do we do? And I mean, the call comes in so much and the parents were so upset as us as law enforcement officers because like, what? So she's sending porn to this cat and he could be anybody. And I'm like, he could be.
He is anybody.
He could be anybody, but I mean, like, all I do is forward this to a detective, but I'm going to be honest with you. She consensually sent these pictures. This guy is, could be 50 years old, but he, we can't explore all of these now. I wish they should. I listen, if I was the chief of police, that would be the most busy unit that there was, is combating child sex trafficking, because child sex trafficking crime rate is 4 times more than race crimes. There was 4 times more child sex crimes in the United States last year than there were hate crimes. And think about how much the media loves a good hate crime. But if there's 4 times more child sex crimes, why isn't the media as thirsty or as aggressive on reporting these sex crimes as they are race crimes?
But because they're already, the media and the far left liberals their narrative is you can chop off your penis when you're 12 years old. So they definitely can't go against mutilation of children and brainwashing of children as young as elementary school students to change their gender. So if they did go against what we're talking about today, then that would go against their narrative. It would clash at some point, right? Or there's sex-driven books in elementary schools showing little boys how they can blow other little boys. That's my opinion. Sonia, we haven't heard from you in a second. What do you think about everything that we're unleashing here?
To go along with all of that too, there was just something that was reported in the Post 2 days ago. Social media giants Meta, X, and Google sue Ohio over new law requiring parents' consent to open an account. Now, we know that social media is a breeding ground for these pedophiles to target out kids, to groom them, to find them. So there's a trade group representing some of the largest social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, is suing Ohio after the state enacted, Ohio of all people, who has like has all those missing kids all in like a month. I think it was like, what, they have over 1,000 kids missing.
Hey, well, to be fair, have you ever been to Ohio?
I've been once.
There's nothing to do there except like devious porn shit or.
But my point is that here's a state that is it goes into effect January 15th, enacting a law that parents need to consent to their children opening up a social media account under the age of, I believe it was 13 and under.
Perfect. That's a great age. I mean, I would have fought.
This company, Net Choice, that represents all of these social media platforms, is suing Ohio over this law.
Well, why do you think they invented Snapchat? Like a app for kids, all geared to all the little cutesy kitty stuff that would really make kids happy. Like they didn't make Snapchat for adults to send videos that disappear in 24 hours. Could you imagine for 1 second if we had that technology, if we had the power to send our friends, like there would be no truth or dare. I would have been sending my dick pics all over the place. I'd been sending pictures of my beehole because when I was in 7th grade, I thought that was the funniest shit on the planet. And if I could send it out and it would be deleted and, after the first view, I would have been doing it all the time because I wouldn't have been able to process that these things aren't really being deleted. There is a such thing as screenshots, but it's proof that when they invented Snapchat, like that is 100% so that deviants can get access to deviant shit.
Well, and here's the thing that people don't realize about Snapchat as well. You're totally right about that. And that goes back to you're not fully developed mentally to make the appropriate decisions. Because, anybody back in those days, anybody would have said, let me use your pencil. Pencil. Like we thought everything was dick, right? But that's the thing is like you have these Snapchat platforms. Good example. One of my nephews, he's totally of age. He's a college student, but he met his girlfriend on Snapchat. They didn't have any mutual friends. They did not know each other, by the way. And I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I said, well, how did you meet that? How did you guys like meet each other? Oh, well, it was suggested. And I was like, it was suggested by who? Well, it was suggested by Snapchat. It brings you a list of names. And I have Snapchat because I have adult friends. And I have family members. My sister-in-law sends videos of the baby and them and stuff like that. But underneath all of your friends, it does say suggested by Snapchat. So you can find people. And so I think Sonia and I actually have a mutual friend who I'll not name in this podcast, but his daughter was just raised right, that she had brought that attention to her father immediately. Sonia, was that through Snapchat where he was messaging back and forth with somebody?
No, actually, we got permission. We could speak about it, and we did bring it up on our last podcast.
Okay,
so
I never want to.
Yeah, and I'll tell the story of what was allowed to be said. One of my team members, 12-year-old daughter, she has a friend in town. The friend's uncle, who is here on a visa from another country, got a hold, had seen his daughter once when the kids were all hanging out, went through his niece's phone, got this little girl's number, and started texting her.
That's what
She immediately brought it to her father because she is educated, obviously, by him because of what we do. And he brought it to him immediately. He called me immediately. We took over the chat, pretending to be her, because it was a Friday. It was reported to police. A report was filed, but he still needed to go meet with county sheriffs to go further in this. So we took over the chat with the assistance and guidance of the person that runs the group that I'm a part of. We held it off through the entire weekend. Monday, he went to meet with the sheriffs, turned the chat over. By Thursday, they had the meetup. They took over the chat, pretended to be her, had him meet up at a park. He was arrested on the spot. They are still going through all of the court stuff, but
that wouldn't happen with me. Like, that couldn't happen with me, and maybe that's why God hasn't presented that before me, because I would end that motherfucker's bloodlines.
Oh, no, trust me.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there would be no cops.
Mikey wanted to.
I get that.
There would be no cops. It would be like, hey, 2A Mama and Anthony, can you guys meet me in Ohio with a shovel and a fucking plastic bag?
I'm there, bro.
I get it. So that's my initial mentality too. I have all the pedophile hunter stuff, but in the reality of it, it's like, what good are you to your daughter to protect her further? If this happened now, just think of how many other times it may possibly happen. If you're in jail,
I won't go to jail. You guys aren't going to snitch. You guys aren't going to snitch. Just kidding. Listen, I'm not calling for vigilante.
I agree with you. Our first instinct is like, we want to take the person down, but this is the proper way to take them down, obviously. So he continuously goes to the court hearings, obviously.
Obviously, don't hang out by a payphone.
I get it.
By the way, listen, obviously, don't hang out by a payphone. And then when they're escorting him into the courtroom, obviously, don't hang up the phone, turn around, and blast him in the head with a pistol.
Listen, there are laws that are starting to pass for victims, the survivors that have taken the law into their own hands. And this is, what they've done to take out, and they're considering it self-defense. So, yes, there are laws coming into play where people who actually take down their abusers, they're calling it self-defense, and they are, there are a lot of people in jail for this. Victims that are, or survivors, I should say, that are in jail for doing this. So I applaud the states that are actually passing this now, that are allowing, they're not getting convicted for, let's say, taking down their abusers.
That guy, that the reference I was just referencing to, that was in the Baton Rouge airport, and I can't remember his name. I should probably remember his name because he's the most gangster motherfucker on earth. But he hangs out by the payphone, and when the suspect walks by, he hangs up the phone, and right in front of the police and everything, he shoots this dude right in the head. There's actually a T-shirt on Red Pill Threads about it, I believe. And then the guy only got sentenced to probation. Now, this was back in the very early, this was in 1984, actually, that case. And I can't remember the guy's fucking name, but I need to put a picture of him on my wall right next to Slick Willie Clinton back here and Casey Anthony. But
so I basically, I know that we came on here today to talk about, the list. But I'm glad that we didn't just talk about the list. We talked about the importance of it going on right under our noses, because those are the bites that you can take out of this whole entire trafficking world that you can actually do something about, as opposed to, we can't really fucking do anything about the list. The list, it's definitely something that's getting people talking, which is great. But I know that we all are going to sleep better tonight because we sleep on our ghost beds. And if you use code ANT ConservativeAnt /GhostBed/ConservativeAnt, you will get 50% off on all of your purchases. You sleep with a ghost pillow, don't you?
Yes, I'm a huge fan. I've slept on ghost beds for many places. I belong to a network that only had ghost beds. I've done podcast episodes from ghost beds. I travel with my ghost bed pillow constantly. I have several ghost bed pillows. I have the cooling sheets. I have all the things. We've been to the ghost bed facility and factory and met everybody there. Beds made in the good old USA. I'm a huge fan of Ghost Bed. Use that promo code ANT for conservative Anthony ANT. 0% down, 0% financing, and that's if you have podcaster credit. You know what I mean? You can afford one of these beds. If you have influencer credit, you can absolutely still get one of these beds. I'm just teasing. I want to go back really quick before we hang up to kind of sum this up. There is a war going on. Now, I fought in a real war in 2005, 2006. I fought in a real war. But this war is more important. And the way a war works is that everybody has to be involved, and everybody is a hero that's there and is doing their best. From the foot soldier, like to a patriot mama who's going out and physically hunting bad human beings and rescuing children, to the guy who is posting and commenting on the Twitter feeds of Bill Clinton, of any of these guys who have been accused to be with younger women, R. Kelly, Michael, to those who boycott these things, you are just as important. It's like the supply clerk that never sees combat but served in that time. Those guys can't fight the war without you. They can't fight it without the cook, without the logistics officer. Everybody has to do their part. And you first have to realize that you are in a war. And I used to say this when I was in the military to some guys that were like, well, I'm not really a soldier. I'm not really a soldier. I'm just a logistics clerk. I'm never going to see combat. If you have that attitude, then you are not going to be supporting the infantry guy, the scout, the Green Beret, the Ranger. You're not going to be supporting them because you're giving a half-out effort. You have to first acknowledge that you are part of the war machine. And what you do is just as important as everybody else. You have to tell yourself that. And so not everybody can be Sonia. Not everybody can be Yako Buyans, but everybody has access to social media. I saw a clip where Bill Clinton was walking through the airport and everybody was trying to ask Bill Clinton questions. And none of those questions until one person said, what about all these new sex allegations? And then the whole airport started booing. Be the guy who boos these people. Don't be the tit for tat political backer here, an affiliate where it's like, well, I know that so-and-so was accused of this, but the Republican was accused of this, or the Republican was accused of this, but did you know? No, all of these people need to be held accountable. They all need to be shamed, and you need to do your part in this war. You know that guy that's looking at porn and is not looking at porn, but is addicted, full-on addicted to porn. Call him out. Start calling out. You know that guy in the locker room that can't stop looking at a girl's ass everywhere you go. You know the guy that's like, damn, she's pretty. I wonder how old she is. No, you need to call that motherfucker out and say, inappropriate, dude. If you have to ask, she ain't old enough. And I'd appreciate if you didn't do it around me.
And I don't disagree with you, Eric, but I will say this. You are a man that is married with 5 kids. I don't want to completely...
No, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want our listeners to be like, oh man, I can't even look at a Hooters ad. No.
Like, you know the guy that goes too far. You fucking know the guy that goes too far.
There is guys that go too far, yes.
I'm not talking about the guy that has a couple of drinks and gets drunk once a week. You know, that's the full-blown alcoholic you go for. You know the guy that's fucking trashed every single night.
Yes.
That fucking can't stand up, that drinks till he pukes, and you know he's got a problem. Yeah, of course, every guy's fucking looking at girls here and there. But you know that you have one friend. I promise you have that one guy that can't fucking stop, and that's all he talks about, and that's all your relationship is with him. I guarantee I have one of those guys. I have one of those friends. Listen, you know the guy I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the casual looker. I'm not talking about the Man Show, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition guy.
Yeah, no, I know.
The guy who's got fucking
yes, I know what you're
calendars on his fucking refrigerator. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
How old are you? You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
No, I get it. And here's the reason. And Sonia can kind of vouch on this too, because I mean, she is one of my best friends. We talk every single day. The reason why I say that is because another bad thing that social media and the media has done is they've they've watered down words, and what they have done is they watered down the words like you're a racist, you're homophobic, you're
Sure.
xenophobic, you're that person committed SA, that person did this. And what they're doing is they're just taking these words when they are not suitable for the situation, and they're using they're using those words in their situation for clicks and views. And then what happens is actual real victims don't get heard because everybody's using the word over too much. So
Sure.
I would just say be really know the type of person that Eric is talking about. He's right. We all have probably one person in our life that we can think of and be like, oh yeah, that dude's a pig.
And it's
And
more
then
like
and be
accountability.
able
It's not like a write the guy off. Like, I'm not saying like he's a piece of shit and he's a sexual assaulter, but like we need to hold that guy accountable. So when he sends you something that's completely inappropriate, like a quick like, yo, dog, hey, what makes you think that I'm into this? And you should probably
or be like, hey, don't.
You're still his friend. You know what I'm saying?
Just be or at least, and that's the same thing as like, look, as a gay man in 2024, I have most of my friends are straight guys, right? And I'm a very no filter person. I take jokes back. Many of these guys that I grew up with, even in high school and on, they'll smack my butt and stuff, joking around. I don't take that in a way that's in a weird way. But if somebody does say, hey, don't send me that, I'm not into that, don't send me that, or hey, don't do that again, and you don't listen, that's a person you need to be concerned about.
For sure.
Because they're not listening to you and they're just still doing the thing. And if you're not comfortable with the thing, that's fine for you to say to them, I'm not into whatever it is you're talking about. So all good, but let's move on. I think that's what Eric is saying, is calling them out. And I also feel the same way on that. Sonia and I have seen so many times where actual victims' voices get so drawn out because so many people have used the words, all of them, in the wrong context. Am I off script?
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, I think we've beaten the fucking you're a racist or you're a
yeah.
I think we've beaten that to death. And look, I mean, I put out a call to send Anthony as many dick pics as possible to be funny. So, I'm a big fucking dirtbag too. I'm a man's man. I'm a toxic white dude for sure. And I really like.
And I think it's funny. I mean, but for me, it takes a lot.
You want to send me a funny midget porn clip? That's hilarious. Maybe I'll laugh. I'm talking about the guy that just can't stop. The video and it has no context. It's just straight pornography. The guys that have a problem. The girls that have a problem. The guys that are in the locker room. That they can't stop cheating on their wives and everything. What I'm saying is that you have to be aware of what's reasonable and what's not, so you don't have another Denny Perkins case. You don't want another 19-year police officer that you say, well, I never saw this coming, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, we called him Dirty Dick Dickens because he would stick his dick in anything. Well, okay, that's the guy that that'll stick his dick in anything, and they call him Dirty Dick Dickens, and everything about him is sexual, and that you have a nickname like Dirty Dick Dickens. That's probably the fucking predator. And that's the guy you should look at.
And Eric, something else before I move to Sonia, because I want her, before we log off, to tell us what she's currently doing and how people can follow her. But I will say, y'all need to listen to little kids, because kids will let you know if they don't want to be around somebody, because they're not running up. Like, there's signs that you like, don't be complacent, basically.
Sure.
So I read an article the other day of a parent that was like, my kid didn't want to, I think it was like, my kid didn't want to sit on Santa's lap. And I was like, I get that. Like, it's a dude in a mall that's dressed as Santa. If my kid is like cool, like with it and comfortable in his own stuff, and he goes up, he sits on Santa's lap, it's a very innocent thing. But if your kid does it, I'm using this as an example because it's not a predatory thing. It's more of like a kid's comfort thing. If my kid says to me, Daddy, I don't want to sit on Santa's lap. All right, buddy, you don't have to. Like, listen to what your kids want to say. I am not a parent, guys. I stopped doing the school board thing. I stopped, doing the parent thing because I'm not a parent. I'm just giving you the information so you as a parent can go and bitch about it and change it yourself. But if I was a parent and me as an uncle, I listen to my nephews and nieces, and I know that if there's somebody that they don't want to run up to and give a hug and say hi to, I'm kind of not going to make them. Like,
Sure.
not going to make them go say hi to that person. Maybe they're weird to them. Kids can sense that. Animals can sense bad people.
I was
So
just about to say that. They're like fucking like you know when to flee the earth, like you know when an earthquake is coming because all the birds flee and everything. TA Mama, where can we find you? How can we consume your content? Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. My main platform is TikTok. It's under dark2, the number 2 light 1111, or just search for 2A Patriot Mama. That's where most of my content is. I do transfer it over to Instagram under 2A Patriot Mama. I am under Twitter 2A Patriot 74. We have the podcast Monday nights on Rumble under Dark to Light 1111. We have some pretty awesome guests coming on. We have the founder of Free International coming on this Monday, who is based out of Nevada and who we will be meeting up with again, leading up to Super Bowl for our next search and rescue operation. I think that's it as far as finding me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. You guys head over to Rumble and check out our podcast. For myself, for the amazing conservative Anthony doing the Lord's work on a daily basis, as well as 2A Patriot Mama doing the Lord's work on a daily basis, salving children. This has been another Night Shift, top secret information. Stay alert, stay aware, and most importantly, stay alive.